Hi, everyone. This is in conversation with the editor-in-chief, me, of SMF 2020. And basically, in this session or video call, we've had to do this over video call because of COVID restrictions. We're going to be chatting about some of the difficulties and some of the highlights of our SMF journey. And on that note, I have been thinking about this, and Masejo, you were right there with me from the beginning with the bird's eye view of what was going on in the newsroom, because you're the deputy editor-in-chief. So I was just wondering, what for you was the most rewarding part of this entire experience?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Kirathana. It's difficult to pick a single experience, but I think the thing that stuck out most for me was there were quite a few people in the class who found an aspect of magazine design that really worked for them, and they just ran with it. Like Sarah's drawings, I don't know what the official name is for it, but just seeing her flourish, and now she's doing a whole bunch of drawings for fun. I think for me that was one of the biggest rewards of the SMF experience. Yeah. And it's wild because this was the first time that we were writing for print, right? And a lot of us were so anxious about it, because it's daunting. Once you've printed something, it's there. We can't go online and change it. So I want to hear from you, Kirathana. How did you find the experience of writing a print article for the first time?
That was quite daunting, as you said at the beginning, because we've been writing for multimedia the whole year. You can scan the QR code in the magazine to get onto our multimedia website. And yeah, it was just learning all different types of new things and learning how to lay out your article in a print format. The things that we've learned this year in our classes, in our print production classes, in our magazine production classes, really helped in terms of laying that all out. And we had some great mentors and some great subs. And we also had a great production manager to keep us on track the whole time, which is actually Rebecca. So, Rebecca, you made this elaborate production plan for us on day one or something. And basically, did we ever stick to that production plan? And did you have was it a fun time making sure that everyone stuck to their deadlines and things?
Yeah, I love scheduling things and planning things. So this was like a dream come true. And I had my production plan, and it was all color coded and really fantastic there, Excel form. And I remember the first few deadlines that we had, we were on track. And then the first thing came and subbing schedule was a bit off, and I freaked out, and I kept changing the production plan, and I kept telling you, Masejo and Kirathana and Leo, okay, the production plan it's changed now, I'm going to print it again. And I realized very soon I would run out of money to keep printing this production plan because it keeps changing. So no, it was not perfect, but I think that taught us a really good lesson about being flexible and adaptable, which is so appropriate for this year. I think that's something that everybody has had to learn, and I think it's very true maybe for the magazine business, which was obviously a very good lesson for us, is to be flexible, and also resilient when things change, because nothing goes as planned, and that's we should be problem solvers. So I think there was a lot of lessons to learn in that, yeah, specifically for me. Yeah. Kirathana, wait, can I also ask you a question?
Sure.
Quickly? This has actually been on my mind. It's my favorite part of the magazine, it's the editor's letter. And actually, the editor's letter is something that I look forward to in all magazines, in newspapers as well. It's also my favorite part in like a novel, is like the letter to the reader. So also, like, appropriately, I was really looking forward to your editor's letter, and it is one of my favorite parts of SMF. But not just because like I love an editor's letter, but because I think it was written so well, and it kind of like hit all the right spots that the editor's letter should. And there were a lot of like hard hitting moments that kind of was like, sure. And I remember whilst you were writing the letter that you were actually sitting with it for some time. And I remember I also like kept asking you about it, like, when is it ready? How is it going? So I'm wondering, like, what was it like to write this letter? And also, what was it about the letter that was, I don't want to say like holding you back, but kind of like, that was like, I don't know, keeping you there, like keeping you from like coming to writing this letter, which the end product was like superb. But what was that like?
I don't know if it was superb, but I enjoyed writing it. Um, well, towards the end, I enjoyed writing it. For the most part, I think I sat with it for a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I was chatting to the editor from last year, Roxanne Moonies, and she said that you'll go through about 9 drafts before you do the final one. And she was right, because it took me a very long time to just sit down and say, these are all the things that I want to go into this letter. These are all the things that our magazine is about. And I also read a lot of editors' letters online on Fun Week, mostly. So yeah, it just took a lot of working at the entire time, and it was good that I had somebody sitting right next to me, you, saying the entire time, when is it going to be done? Can I have your editor's letter today? It needs to be subbed. So yeah, I think that's it.
Can I just jump in there? Speaking about like schedules and getting copy in on time, Leo, I want to find out from you, like as news editor, what did your job entail? And was it what you expected when you applied for this position?
Okay, so first off, basically what my job is to make sure that our copy is clean, cut, lacquer, and obviously with our amazing copy desk team. So big shout out to them. And then what my expectations were. So I feel like you can't really like every year when I try out something new, when I try out a different role, I don't go with any expectations. There's the word. So I just go and I go do it, and I just live in the moment. So I had like a certain sense of expectations, but I think that at the end of the day that I went through everything, and I lived in the moment, and yeah. And then Kirthana, speaking about content. So this year's issue touched on quite a lot, and I think actually really necessary themes, elements, and moments in journalism, specifically in 2020. So if you could only get one message across, what would it be?
Um, I think the message that the takeaway message that readers should have from SMF 2020 is that we always have to be adaptable, and especially in our industry, you have to learn to change with the times. And I think SMF 2020 is all about changing with the times. And I think we've done a really good job in encompassing that. I mean, you'll see it on our cover behind me. It says, "This way up, remaking the media." So it's all about the change that we've all gone through. And I think being resilient throughout that change is so necessary. So yeah, that's the takeaway message: resilience and adaptability, I'd say. Yeah. Leo, you spoke about the copy desk, and we have our main man with us, Mr. Michael Brown. And he was the chief English sub. And Mike, I have a question for you. So basically your job took a lot of long hours and just no sleep basically for a few weeks. So my question to you is, why is the copy desk and why is subbing such an integral part of magazine making?
Well, I don't think I've recovered from that sleep deprivation quite yet, but alas, we move on. Yeah, obviously subbing is a massive, massive part of the magazine. And the best way I think I can describe it is to actually use a cliche, which is not the greatest thing you should be doing as an English sub-editor. But there's an old saying that said, if you put lipstick on a pig, at the end of the day, it's still a pig, all right? So for me, that's just the 100% the magazine. My job as a sub-editor is to make sure I give the art team not a pig, but something incredibly special to work with. Something that when they put it into images and make it look pretty, it also stands out as well. At the end of the day, my biggest goal that I always told myself was when Adrian Basson or when Branko from Daily Maverick, when they open up our magazine and they read, the actual content, they must sit there and they must go, wow, this subbing team and this copy desk really knew what they were doing. And I think we would be incredibly naive to think for one moment that excellent art would completely fool these, media professionals. So for me, that was always taking a standard and kind of maintaining that through. And I think that is something you yourself, Kirstana, would have felt with your vision you had for the magazine. So I'm actually quite interested in that. To apply for the editor-in-chief, you had to submit a vision statement and idea to get the role, which of course you did. So how did this vision actually change throughout the process of creating SMF, if it did at all? And if it did change, my question is, what influenced it and how did it influence these changes?
I read my vision earlier. I think I can pull it up on my phone quickly. I read the vision statement that I sent through in my application. And a key part of it is, as young media professionals, the 2020 COVID-19 based SMF would help us and our media industry peers gain better insight into what the sector will look like post-pandemic. Although some might say the media is oversaturated with pandemic news, if the class of 2020 were not to center SMF around the effects that COVID-19 has had on print publications, science journalism, and the well-being of journalists, we would be remiss. So I think initially I wanted it to focus on those three things: retrenchments in the industry. That was a very important point this year. And then science and health journalism, which I wrote my SMF article about. And mental health and social justice that journalists were going through during the pandemic in lockdown. So my vision didn't really change, and I feel sort of guilty about this. I feel like I should have taken, more ideas into account. But it basically, as you will see in the magazine, there are 3 sections and they all speak to my vision. and I'm really happy about that. But I'm not, yeah, I hope my whole class is happy about that and the whole production team. But yeah, it didn't change much, so yeah.
On the topic of visions, Jenna, I remember when we were initially like toying with ideas for themes, you'd expressed that you don't want SMF to be like solely COVID focused, but you acknowledged that we had to somehow speak about the impact of COVID in the publication and show it visually. So how did the art team visually represent COVID and the impact thereof without explicitly making the visual focus of the magazine, COVID-19?
Yes. Okay. Well, so from the beginning, for me, it felt like not mentioning COVID would be silly, but also mentioning it so overtly and making it a COVID issue will be kind of like on the nose and not. I don't think it would have been a great showcase of the wit that we have in our class. So yeah, we didn't want to put PPE on the cover, for example, or we did at some stage, and like, yeah, that was a whole nother thing, but we didn't want it to shout COVID because I think since the beginning of the year, media audiences have also been so bombarded with like COVID information where you see something COVID and you kind of turn the other way, where you just go, oh, not that, like anything else but that. Yeah, and we just wanted to be a little bit more smart about it. So what we ended up doing was just trying to think one step behind, or like one step further than PPE, or than like the scary pandemic, or one step further than the COVID, like the actual virus, like that, the bug that everyone thinks of. But we do start, the first article does have a mask, but used in a very, very clever way, Byron's article. So we do start with a mask and we do end with banana bread, which like we all know, like I had to fight for, was a lockdown and a COVID kind of symbol. So COVID is in there visually, but yeah, we just wanted to be a little bit smarter about it. And then what actually, now looking back, what stands out for me is that by not focusing visually on COVID signifiers, by showing like the media and media signifiers, like there's a lot of newspaper visual elements, a lot of stuff, by showing the things that have kind of gone away, or that we've kind of lost. It was actually a more powerful way to kind of show what COVID has done, like paging through this and kind of feeling like you're mourning what was in some sense, which I think it's kind of spooky paging through it and reading all these stories of what has gone, what COVID has taken away. But that's me. I always talk so much. The SMF team knows. But Masego, for you, something that I've been wondering, we are desk neighbors, but I haven't leaned over and asked you this question, but for your SMF article, you wrote about journalism and activism. And we know that that's a call that you feel personally, both of those, journalism and activism. And if we do good jobs, then our own thoughts shouldn't be revealed in our articles, and you definitely did do a good job. So I'm curious about what you personally think about journalists being activists.
Sure, this question. Good question. Because I really struggled with. It was only after I interviewed my sources that I realized how close to my heart this topic was, and that made it very difficult for me to remove myself from my writing. I personally feel that it's difficult to completely remove yourself from your writing. That's why we have people like sub-editors, news editors, and so on, to facilitate that process of working like some sort of impartiality in your writing. So yeah, it was something that I struggled with because again, like a lot of what my sources were saying were points that I agreed with. And so to answer your question, I think being a journalist and an activist, like it's not mutually exclusive. A person can fulfill both roles. For as long as in the fulfillment of those roles, no harm is caused, be it harm to sources, harm to the public, like personal harm. But it's also one of those things, like, I think it's something that I'm going to think about a lot in my life. And I don't think my answer today will be the same as my answer in a month's time, in 2 years' time. And I think that's okay, because I think it's a very fluid thing. Journalism looks different as time goes by. Activism looks different as time goes by. But yeah, that's basically my answer.
I have a question again. I'm talking a lot, so I'm sorry. But I have a question for Savannah, our distribution manager, or circulation manager. Yeah. Circulation manager. And I just want to know, your job as we speak isn't done yet. So yeah, so what are you most looking forward to in terms of D-Day, distribution day? Yeah.
I'm really excited to see. I feel like we've all been putting in all this work, and it's all like lovely seeing it on a digital format, but to see it like the fruition of like everything we've been doing to finally be like a physical thing that we can hold and that we can like have for generations to come, and that we can show our employers and people who intern under us one day. We can be like, look what we did now, And I think I'm also really excited to see how the public reacts to it. I think a large portion of my job is interacting with like sources and people who we spoke to get the articles out. And I'm excited to see what they think and to hear their feedback, and hopefully they love it. And I'm sure they will, because we love it. Yeah. And I actually had a question for you, woman to woman. I know you obviously are a leader and chief and have done an amazing job. And I know women in leadership positions, you often get called bossy. It comes across that way, like if you assert your dominance, you assume to be bossy. Do you think that that's something that you struggled with in this management process?
Oh, I think that to an extent I did, because I was really afraid, because I'm quite a timid person in general. So I was afraid of generally coming across as being a bit too harsh. But then if you factor in the fact that, as you said, women are called controlling and bossy once they do step into those roles, it was added pressure. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I had to keep telling myself, and I had Masejo there to keep reassuring me, which I'm immensely grateful for. She kept reassuring me that you aren't being too harsh, you are doing a good job, and yeah, I think that was important for me to have that support. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in again. Sorry, I also feel like I'm talking a lot now. But Anka, my question's actually for you now. So as our deputy art director, you had a lot to do with like the cover and other such conceptual ideas for the magazine. And so I want to find out from you, how many cover options did the art team go through before you found one that everyone, like including me and Kirthana and just the whole editorial team, agreed on? And Annalie as well, because we did ask her for her input.
So I asked Jenna this before the interview, and I realized that in a short amount of time, like I think in 2 weeks, a week and a half, we went through options, about like 7 or 10 options for a front cover. And what we've realized through the process as we designed with each design of each front cover was that we were never really sold or even immediately like satisfied with a front cover. And that, I think it's because like we didn't want to say this is a COVID cover, but we wanted to play with that idea or allude to that idea that change has occurred within the media, but we don't want to make it that obvious. And I think that's what made our job to creating this cover so difficult. And that's why I think we went through so many options. I mean, we went from faces being mashed together to that Chinese like fortune cookies. And then we ended up with the one that you can see here in the background. And even on print day, this idea of this cover also changed a lot. And we were also sitting the final few minutes, we're actually sitting and still changing it. So at the end of the day, everybody agreed to this one that people are seeing now. But I think also that the deadline decided for us what the cover should be. And I think that it turned out great and that we are really happy with what we ended up with. And I actually want to ask you, how was it working with the art team and going into a meeting knowing that the cover or a concept might change? Oh, yeah.
I I feel like I've disclosed my biases from day one, but the art team has a special place in my heart. So I honestly always looked forward to art meetings, and I was never worried that we'd like be sitting without a cover. Now I always knew that you guys would deliver, man. Like I trusted you and you did. You pulled through, you delivered. I think, the things that I was worried about were possible clashes between like copy and art teams, but we didn't have like hectic, like boxing matches between the two of you guys, well, the two teams rather. So I think I went into meetings with the art team quite excited, and I want to say I speak on behalf of like Kirthana, Leo, and Rebecca as well. You guys really, really, really pulled through. So thank you.
We were all really unfamiliar with our roles going into this. I have a short background as a news editor. Jenna has a short background with multimedia as the multimedia editor, yes. But somebody who had a background in something similar to what she was working with is Nicole. And Nicole, basically, I want to know, you are on social media with multimedia as well, and I want to know, what were the differences between working with social media for multimedia and SMF, and what did you enjoy about working on social media?
I would have to say the biggest difference between multimedia and SMF is the feel, because with SMF we have this vision, we have this theme that we want to get across. It has a specific look, so everything has to go into the frame of what SMF is. We all know what SMF is, so we have to make it visually look like that, especially on social media where we get a lot of our where we can spread a lot of our work, where we can promote our work. But with multimedia, everything is tailored per article, whereas with SMF, we're all coming together with one big product. So that's the main difference. But what I really enjoyed about working on SMF social media is how I got an art team to work with, because with social media for multimedia, it's you work with your writer, your journalist, and what the article is about, and that's it. But with a magazine, with an art team, you have a whole group of people that that have the same goal in mind, and we want to make it look good, and that's what it ended up. And I'm very proud of how our social media looks like, because like If you haven't already, go check out our social media. It looks very professional. It looks very classy and elegant, and that was our goal. Even though there are 26 voices in this magazine, it all merges into one, and that's what makes it really cool. Kirthana, I have one last question for you, and that is, print is dead, or so they say, because look at us producing a magazine during a pandemic. Some people will be like, wow, why are you doing that? And this even relates to Jenna's article about Daily Maverick producing a print publication during the pandemic. Do you think, do you still, do you agree with the naysayers that print is no longer relevant?
I think that, okay, first of all, I want to say that 2018's SMF was called Print is Dead, and if you flipped it over, it said Print is Not Dead. So people have been saying print is dead for years now. And I really don't think that's the case, because, for example, if you do look at Daily Maverick, they astounded all of us this year by putting out a newspaper first of all, in a time where print is supposedly dying, and then during a pandemic. And I'd like to think that they definitely are on that path of reinventing, and sort of what I said in the beginning, about the words. They're basically being so innovative, and I think that everyone should just follow in their footsteps. And I think everyone should also follow in SMF's footsteps and just continue making print work. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is what our editorial team has to say. It's been actually a short journey of just 2 months, but it feels like an age. And we're just really grateful for this experience, and we hope you really love SMF. And look at our cover, it's so beautiful. Look at it. Yeah, Masejo, it's that time in the meeting where I like nudge you and say, is there anything you wanted to say?
And as I've been responding, you've covered it all. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and pick up a copy of our magazine and look at all of our QR codes, scan them, listen to our Spotify playlist. Just really enjoy yourself with SMF 2020, remaking the media. Thanks.